was imposed during the Trump-Pence administration and will cost American families, he says, over $3,500 per year. Now, I'd say on that, they will cost more money for goods unless American production can outdo them. And I think that is one of the goals here, but that might take some time. Now, Senator Rand Paul also wrote that, quote, tariffs don't punish foreign governments, they punish American families. And he said, when we tax imports, we raise the price of everything, from groceries to smartphones to washing machines to prescription drugs. Now, the other side of it is other countries do it to us. Is that also something that's causing these problems? And if they're doing it to us with nothing stopping them, well, what can be done to stop that if they agree that tariffs are wrong? Now, Vice President J.D. Vance, he talked about this a bit. He countered some of these arguments, and he explained some of the thinking of this in an interview on Fox News, while also saying that a goal of the tariffs is also to lower the money, lower taxes on Americans. Watch this.
For 40 years, we've had an economy that rewards people who ship American jobs overseas and raises taxes on American workers, and we're flipping that on its head. We're going to cut taxes for American workers and for American companies that build here. We're going to make it harder to ship American jobs overseas. It's a total shift in the way that we've done economic policy in the United States of America, but it was necessary. So, yeah, we're going to cut your taxes. You're going to have more money in your pocket, and that's, of course, going to help you deal with the cost of inflation. But that's not about offsetting the tariffs. They work together. We want to penalize people for shipping our jobs overseas. We want to reward hardworking Americans. It's all part of the same policy.
Along with this, though, others have pointed out that tariffs are not necessarily permanent. And this is kind of the part a lot of people are not really discussing here. It doesn't seem to be the case. These are meant to be some ongoing thing. There are several ways out already being offered to other countries. One option, they can move manufacturing for domestic goods into the United States. So if they want to sell to the U.S., move their factories here, the argument from the Trump side going back a long way is that because of these trade policies, American factories have left the country. And the only way to bring them back is to incentivize it or put things in place to kind of push for it. Others have pointed out that in the language of Trump's order on the tariffs, there are specific parts that emphasize these are reciprocal. And if other countries end their tariffs and the restrictions on U.S. goods, the United States will reciprocate that as well. Meaning, you end your tariffs on us, we'll stop tariffing you. Now, the relevant language from the bill is this. It says, quote, should any trading partner take significant steps to remedy non-reciprocal trade arrangements and align sufficiently with the United States on economic and national security matters, suggesting this is not just about trade, it's also about national security, Trump says, quote, I may further modify the HTS-US to decrease or limit in scope the duties imposed under this order. Now, that's not really like a guarantee, at least in my opinion. It's not like some ironclad promise. It says that Trump may modify, he might do it. So it's not really like he's promising to do it. But again, I assume this is going to be case by case. I also assume the decision on lifting tariffs, there are people already asking for negotiations. They want to talk, and I assume each one will be judged individually. Some of these are going to be taking place very quickly. Some of them maybe not so. Probably most of the countries that are being impacted by this are looking at some response. Most of them so far are looking to talk. Many of them are getting rid of their tariffs already. Only a few of them are doubling down and trying to fight back against the U.S. China and mainly the European Union, even though individually European states are, kind of taking their own way. But also, look, just back to the tariffs, it does appear that many of the impacted countries, they could be revising their policies, as I mentioned, towards the United States. It does not look like many are working to retaliate. Only a couple are. Many are now planning already to drop their tariffs in order to, likewise get Trump to possibly drop our tariffs on them. Rod Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital, he put together a list of these cases, and here's what he wrote. He said he's already scored one huge win, talking about Trump. Rather than face the new tariffs, Israel announced yesterday, the day before, it is dropping all tariffs on U.S. imports. Think of all the years of efforts put into negotiating free trade deals that weren't even really free, suggesting that day one, Trump achieved free trade by getting these countries to drop tariffs. They say President Trump just pulled off a 100% free trade deal without having to negotiate at all. In addition to this, he says Vietnam, which is absorbing much of the manufacturing capacity, fleeing China. China also uses them as like a jump pad to manufacture there and get around sanctions. But he said just announced a virtually identical elimination of tariffs on U.S. goods. And Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he will eliminate his tariffs if Trump will. And he also blames China. Now, he also noted that Argentina, Canada, India, they are already taking steps to remove tariffs on U.S. goods. India alone is a huge one. They could potentially replace China as a manufacturing base. Others, including Mexico, Australia, Japan, South Korea, and the United Kingdom, they're at least not planning any new tariffs against the United States. Mexico already now, just an update, they're already planning to drop theirs, at least a lot of them. And as for the countries looking to retaliate against the United States, the only two main ones are the European Union and the Chinese regime. Now, in related news, a breakup between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party is taking place also on an individual level. The United States has now banned government employees in China from having romantic and sexual relationships with Chinese citizens. I'll be talking about this more after we come back from a quick break. Employees in China from having romantic or sexual relations with Chinese citizens. The AP said this. It said the U.S. government has banned American government personnel in China, as well as family members and contractors with security clearances, from any romantic or sexual relationship with Chinese citizens.
Want to get caught in the honey trap.
It says 4 people with direct knowledge of the matter told the AP about the policy, which was put into effect by departing U.S. Ambassador Nicholas Burns in January, shortly before he left China. Meaning this was a Biden-era policy. This is not even Trump administration. The people would speak only on condition of anonymity to discuss details of a confidential new directive. And it says, though some U.S. agencies already had strict rules on such relationships, a blanket non-fraternization policy, as it is known, has been unheard of publicly since the Cold War. Return to the Cold War, folks. And they say it's not uncommon for American diplomats in other countries to date locals and even marry them. A more limited version of the policy was enacted last summer, prohibiting U.S. personnel from romantic and sexual relations with Chinese citizens working as guards and other support staff at the U.S. Embassy and 5 consulates in China. But it says Burns, the departing ambassador, broadened it to a blanket ban on such relations with any Chinese citizen in China in January, days before President Trump took office, meaning this was a Biden-era policy. This was before Trump. Now, note the AP was unable to determine exactly how the policy defined the phrase romantic or sexual relationship. Maybe there are some limits on it. Who knows? It seems like it's kind of blanket, but again, details are thin. It looks like this is in response to the Chinese Communist Party's use of what they call honey traps. That's one of the bigger tactics Chinese spies use to compromise people. Effectively, what they do is it's a pretty girl or a nice guy, and they make good friends with you, and they get a little too close to you. And over the course of time, they start asking other things to you. This is a very common tactic, right? Romantic relationships as a method of espionage. And I would actually say it's more than this. The Chinese Communist Party, they don't just use honey traps. This is something a lot of countries do. The Soviets did it very heavily as well. The slogan from the Soviet Union, they said it's very simple. One of their spies actually said this publicly. It's very simple. You know, the Mother Russia, the Soviet government, they ask men to lay down their lives for their country. And they ask women to just lay down for their country. And that was the actual statement they used explaining the tactic. Now, the CCP does other things as well. They use a handful of other ways. The way the Chinese regime basically tries to compromise individuals, anyone they want, and turn them into agents for the CCP is they try to manipulate human flaws. The manipulation of lust is one tactic, honey traps. But they have other ones as well. They also use money, power, and fame. These are the 4 things they do: lust, money, power, fame. The manipulation of money, that's a big one they use to target business leaders. They might say, hey, come join this joint venture in China. You go there, start a business with them, you start getting money. As soon as the money's in, they got a hook in you, and they make you do whatever they want with that hook in your back. Now, the use of power, that's a means to compromise people as well. That's a big tool they use notably to compromise politicians. Not even just here in the U.S., everywhere in the world they do it. They'll even mobilize overseas networks behind political campaigns. They'll get people bussing around, doing campaigns for you, getting signature drives, whatever else, maybe protesting for you. Chinese money working with third-party organizations, puppeteering them. That's power. They will help you get into office. And this is a known tactic. The manipulation of fame, that's another one. They do this a lot with influencers, and they even do it to college professors. They'll give you awards. They'll invite you to China. They will literally roll out a red carpet for you. And they'll say, you're so smart. You're so grand. I'm sure you're recognized in your country as well. I'm sure everybody knows how smart you are. And the person, they just stoke their ego. They make them feel bigger and bigger and better. They'll get Chinese bots to flood their YouTube page. They'll make them feel like they're on top of the world. And then they'll offer them money and deals and appearances. And before you know it, they are propagandists and puppets of the Chinese Communist Party. These are methods they use aggressively to compromise the people they want, who then are the voices of reason, quote unquote, in the countries that they're in. The goal of the Chinese Communist Party with these is to control the civil society. That's your business leaders, that's your influencers, that's your journalists, that's your politicians, and that's anybody who has a voice in that country. They control these, they control the country. And look, speaking of China as well, there's something else that was included with Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. He also eliminated one of these special trade exemptions that the CCP was getting. It's the one that lets them ship to the United States at artificially low costs. And guess what? Doing this is probably going to absolutely decimate retailers like Shein and Temu. So if you've been using those apps, get ready to watch the prices skyrocket. The Epoch Times said this: President Donald Trump signed another executive order on Wednesday directed at closing a previous loophole that postponed duties on low-cost made-in-China imports. It said, quote, President Trump is targeting deceptive shipping practices by Chinese-based shippers, many of whom hide illicit substances, including synthetic opioids, in low-value packages to exploit the de minimis exemption. That's the one where goods under $800 basically don't have any fines or fees on them. Now, this is a fact sheet from the White House stating this, and it adds, quote, imported goods valued at or under $800 sent through channels other than the International Postal Network were previously subject to the de minimis exemption. It says the duty rate is 30% of their value, or $25 per item, with the amount increasing to $50 after June 1st. Carriers that transport these goods are required to report shipment details to Customs and Border Protection, CBP, while maintaining an international carrier
stop buying Chinese shit now.
They must also remit duties to CBP on a set schedule. And guess what? That entire thing is now gone. That whole exception disappeared. And you're going to watch prices of goods imported from China become very expensive. Because, look, they ship it a long way. Why is that important? That trade loophole is also what some of the big Chinese online retailers were using to sell cheap products online. What they were doing was effectively making small, direct shipments to consumers, and they basically came directly from Chinese factories. So instead of, doing large shipments to warehouses, which is how you normally do things like this, you ship a big pallet of goods over $800, you have to pay duties on it, and then you sell it from there. There's additional cost because you're shipping pallets. What happens when you ship under $800, but it's still a pallet? Hey, it's still a pallet, but we're doing direct consumer. It means you make those individual items on the pallet designated as being separate, even though they're on the same thing. They did this, and they were bypassing the warehouses, which meant they could manipulate this trade loophole. That's how they were undercutting American businesses. Those shipments were basically the same. The products, the amounts, it was all actually even more, not even the same. But since they were divided into smaller individual shipments, they could get around paying duties on shipping. They were doing that aggressively. Now, look, in my take, this alone, aside from everything else going on, if Trump only did this to China, this would just cause a massive collapse for a lot of these markets because this affects the Chinese factories and the Chinese online retailers. This was one of their biggest tools for, selling goods to the U.S. and bypassing all the middlemen. That's now eliminated. Well, everyone, that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining us, and as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free.